Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Symantec Network Security, Innovation and Strategy for Your Success. This is the second in a series of 5 webinars our executive leadership is holding every Wednesday for the next few weeks. Just want to thank you for joining us today and encourage you to join us each week to learn more about our innovation and strategy across the Symantec portfolio. If we can go to next slide, you'll see the upcoming webinars that we have. And so just whilst you have a look at that, let me introduce myself. My name is Sunil Chowdhury. I'm part of the marketing team here at Symantec, and I'm going to be moderating, both starting and helping with the questions, fielding the questions to the team. Before we get started, if those of you aren't familiar with BrightTalk, I just want to cover a few housekeeping items. The first one, probably one you're most interested in, is if you have any questions at any point during today's webinar, you can please submit them through the BrightTalk screen. We're going to have time for questions. We'll look to answer as many as we can live, but any which we don't, we'll find a way to get answers. We'll also provide today's slides available, as well as other collateral which we think is going to be useful for you, both as links and resources. So do check out that attachments tab. At the end of the webinar, we'd love your feedback, so please take a moment to rate the webinar, and if you want to provide comments, we will read those and react to those. And just again, if you're new to BrightTalk, the same link that you use to access this live webinar will allow you to access an on-demand recording, and that should be available minute it finishes. So with that, let's get started. It's my pleasure to turn the webinar over to our presenters, and I'm pleased to introduce Art Gilliland, who's Senior Vice President and General Manager, and he's joined by Kevin O'Leary, Vice President of Network Security from the Symantec Enterprise Division of Broadcom. Art and Kevin, let me hand it over to you.
Fantastic. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Art Gilliland. I'm the General Manager, as he said, of the Symantec Enterprise business. I'm joined here by Kevin O'Leary, who runs our web security and email security or network security business. We're looking forward to having a great conversation, and we'll answer some questions at the end. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the webinar, and hopefully it'll be informative and you'll enjoy it. So. Fantastic. Kevin, if you want to put the slides up, and yep. I'll also say please forgive us some of the clunkiness of the webinar, as you know, as all of you are. We're working from home and shop and junk rooms and places that we have space, and so we're kind of on our own. So there's going to be probably some user error in this process. So hopefully you're getting used to that in your daily routine. So Kevin, please.
All right, thanks, Art.
All right, let's go to the next slide. I think as we started the last presentation, we'll spend a little bit of time here. Obviously, the pandemic of COVID-19 has really impacted all of us in all of our lives, and we're working as we work from home and as we try to keep our employees and our families and our organizations safe. And so what I'll say from a Broadcom perspective, we are almost entirely work from home, except for places where we have factories where we need to be manufacturing chips, in which case we're pretty stringent on working in shifts and trying to make sure that we keep our employees as safe as possible, and so that they can protect their families and the communities that they work in. And I'm assuming that's pretty true for almost everybody who's on the webinar today. And so obviously we care a lot about that, and we care about your safety and your health, and we hope that you and your families are doing well. I think the second thing I would say is, even though we are isolated and away from the office, our teams are very focused on making sure that we're continuing to service and protect your organizations and deliver the services and products that you need from us to keep the businesses going. And so while we're all separated and while we're all working from home, we're not just committed to keeping our employees safe, although I would say that's our first priority. I think the second priority that we have that's really top of mind is, how do we make sure that we continue to deliver, that our services stay up and run, and that we're able to make sure that we're delivering on our commitments, not only to our employees and their families, but also to you as our customers. And so I hope that you appreciate that in this crazy time, and we're definitely dedicated to both of those points. Next slide, please, Kevin. We get a lot of questions, or I get a lot of questions for sure, about who is Broadcom and why did they buy us and why do they care about us. And I spent a lot of time in our last webinar talking about that. I think what I would like to just leave you with as a lead off to this is Broadcom buys technology. They care a lot about technology leadership. They've invested heavily in technology leadership. What they identified in Symantec was franchises that they felt, if they continued to invest heavily, could maintain the leadership that they've had over the last decade, and if they invest enough, that they could maintain that leadership for the next decade. And so that is the primary focus of Broadcom. Consolidating franchises that they believe they can maintain and grow into the next decade. And if you think about what that means for them as a company, even though they are able to drive a lot of savings through platform consolidation around IT and everything in the background, they also care a lot about the investment in the IT infrastructure. And so if you think about their business, they're about 70% of their employees are engineers. They invest about 22% of their revenue in R&D. And so that's a huge amount of money for almost a $29 billion company now, or $27 billion company. They're well over $5 billion of investment in R&D. And I hope that helps you understand sort of the logic and the strategy behind their acquisitions. They look for technology companies like Symantec that have a great franchise. They look for the ability to maintain those franchises over time by driving investment. And so that is sort of where they focus and how they think about their business. Now, they're not specifically focused on security. And so when you come back online, Kevin, they can put the next slide up. I believe the next slide is a focus on our strategy. And so Broadcom is not, doesn't get into the details of the strategy. They didn't have a vision of how they're going to consolidate the industry and drive all these integrations across chips and security and stuff. This is not the Intel McAfee model for them. All of the business units essentially run independently. The strategies are driven independently, and so our team is who's driving the strategy. And so Symantec's strategy of integrated cyber defense remains. It is the primary driver of how we think about what we're trying to accomplish as a company and as an organization within Broadcom. And the real driver of that is many of our customers are struggling with the fact that they have a massive amount of diversity in their environments in terms of the tools they use to protect themselves. And it's driven partly by a desire to have, best of breed, to try to stop the bad guy with the best product that's out there. The problem that a lot of them have run into, though, is it creates an enormous amount of complexity. And they're not able to take advantage of all of these pieces because they spend a lot of their time managing them, learning how to use them, and then spend a lot of their operating time integrating them so that those systems work together as a cyber defense environment. And so what Symantec's view is we can do a better job of driving that integration. We have the critical and leading technologies at the places that matter, whether it's at the endpoint where your users are interacting with your systems and your data, whether it's the networks that they go through email or web to touch services that might be in your own data centers or in the cloud. And then the added protection of information intelligence around how to enforce security on the information as it's moving through your environment. And then now, because of the CA consolidation of identity into Symantec, we can also determine who should have access to which information and which systems. That is the primary driver of what we are thinking about. How do we help you deploy and build an integrated cyber defense platform? And that is being built so that you can run it either on your premises, so in your own environments, or you can run it in the cloud, or we can run it in the cloud as a SaaS service. And so the ability to deploy not only in your legacy environments, but also in the new environments that you're migrating to. And the last important thing about this is all of the integrations that we are doing, all of the workflow that we are enabling within our products are enabled by open APIs, so that not only can our systems work together easier and faster, but you can build integrations that make sense to you. And if you decide you want other technologies that are not ours to do any of the pieces, you can still run the same workloads and workflows with those integrations, because you can just leverage the APIs that are available within our products. And so that is our commitment to the strategy. That is a strategy we've been working on for the last couple of years, and will continue as we move into Broadcom. Next slide, please. We talked about the priorities that we have, and obviously Broadcom does have some impact on our strategy for sure. And that strategy is essentially to focus on maintaining and growing our existing customers. There is not a focus within Broadcom of trying to acquire new customers or trying to win new accounts. We've spent almost all of our resources on our existing customer base. And so what that means is that our priorities for the roadmap are very focused on enabling and expanding our relationships with our existing customers. Number one priority is to drive that operational excellence. How to make my products work as well and as stably and as scalably as our customers require them. Because if you have a great experience with the existing products you own, we hope that you will buy more of it or buy more of our technologies. The second priority then is around integration. Obviously, if you can get value from one of the technologies, you will find and hopefully be excited about buying another one. And if I can show you and demonstrate value not only on the pillar itself, so endpoint and web, but also show you that endpoint and web can work together and give you a third benefit, let's say, that integration helps make us a better choice and a better solution for you in your environment. So number one is make sure the products have high quality and are stable and run well in your environment. Number two is that they're integrated so that you get a synergy value above any one value that you might have from a technology. And then finally, we are very zeroed in on driving innovation in alignment with what our customers require. Definitely it is a priority in sort of the top three of what we're focused on. But in this world that we are in, it's operational excellence and quality and stability, number one, driving the integration values, number two, so that we can help you lower cost and improve your security posture, and then adding functionality or driving innovation in partnership with our largest customers' requirements. Next slide, please. And so we talked a lot about the portfolio last time. I will hit on those four sort of franchises for us today: the endpoint security technology and where your employees interact and how they get access to the services; the network security business that we'll talk about more today around the gateways and the isolation and the email systems that help protect the flow of information. Obviously, our intelligence around what data matters and how to enforce policy based on the sensitivity, the importance of that data, And then the addition of our CA technology around identity for being able to help authenticate and determine which users matter and which access they should get access to. Today, obviously, we're going to focus a lot on the network security business. And so I'll turn it over to Kevin now to allow him to walk through the strategy that they're focused on. And so with that, I will say thank you and turn it over to Kevin. So Kevin,
Thanks,
welcome to the show, and folks on the phone, hopefully this will be a valuable day for you. Thank you.
Much appreciated. Thanks very much, Art. Yeah, Kevin O'Leary. I'm the VP of R&D of the Network Security Group, and that includes our portfolio of web and email security products. A little bit about my background. I've got over 30 years of experience in enterprise software and middleware, in various roles of software development, consultant, and then management of various stripes over the years. And I've had experience in both on-prem deployments as well as cloud deployments back in the early 2000s before cloud was cool. So that comes in handy nowadays with our transformation to the cloud that we're doing for you and the customers. I come through a broad range of industries that I produce middleware and software for: supply chain, in the cloud, security, storage management, as well as control and power systems, just to name a few. So I'm going to spend the next 30 minutes just to share our group's investment priorities, our embrace of emerging technologies, and I want to focus on and make apparent that we have the power of our integrated portfolio is what really brings the strength of our cybersecurity solutions to you, ultimately to keep your business and your users safe. So with that, let me just go back to the slide decks. This is similar to what Art showed before in terms of sort of our key priorities, because our key driver for our organization at Broadcom is ensure you get value out of your products, adopt them on your schedule, and expand the footprint as you need on demand. And that really focuses on these priorities. And I'll walk through these themes or priorities just quickly. Around operational excellence, we are in a partnership with Google. Broadcom started a partnership with Google, and that's been very fortunate for us. And it's an across-the-board migration that's underway from our cloud services that are running in colos and in other private clouds, and they're moving to the Google Cloud Platform this year. The first taxi off the rank is to migrate off of our colos for our web security service and our email security service, and that's underway. We've already migrated several sites from colos in certain regions to Google's presence in those same regions, and we're seeing the benefits of this already, which I'll talk a little bit about later. But just in terms of speed and scale and stability, it's a very nice transition, and we think this is something that Broadcom brings this change, and it's for the better as we move forward. Secondly, it's all around making it easier for you to conduct business with us. Art touched about it earlier. And that comes in all phases of the customer lifecycle, whether it's ordering from us subscriptions or appliances, or once you have them in your hands, to either onboard to the service or to deploy them in your networks. And once they're up and running in steady state, to get the proper support when you need it. So around ordering, we're simplifying the purchase process by reducing the number of SKUs. We're providing this year flexible licensing for appliances, so you can carry that anywhere. In addition, once you ease the onboarding of your end users into our cloud solutions, connecting up your VPN gateways to our cloud solutions, that's all a big effort on our side to make it easier for you to do business with us. And as well as the end admins and end users experience, there's a consolidation process going underway to consolidate our administration portals, because we typically have one per product, but those are being consolidated this year. And we have a few endpoint agents. It's better than having none, but we're going to reduce it down to a smaller amount this year. So through combination and consolidation of agents, which will make it easier for you to buy, to purchase, to upgrade. And then, most importantly, our relationship with our strategic customers and the support of the products that they use, is critical to the customer experience. So there's a big focus on our support processes, and that's underway as we talk. And lastly, we providing the network security portfolio is now available under a portfolio license agreement. So you can have access to the products that you need when you need them and expand them as you see fit. Shifting over to integration, we're in a unique position at Symantec because our portfolio is the leader on particularly the on-prem space. Our world-class, dominating proxy SG and SSLV products. And we also have the largest breadth of security surfaces in the cloud, which I'll share with you guys later. And I will say, while our individual products and services are highly competitive and effective, the strength of our portfolio increases dramatically through the integration of those products. So that's our shift over the next 12 months, is to sort of take the foot off the feature velocity pedal and to push more on the stability, quality, and integration pedal as we drive this thing forward. A couple examples of successful integrations already there. Classic threat is users in emails and they see a web link and they want to click on it, and that can cause all sorts of problems with downloading malicious, going to a malicious URL, downloading malware, etc. And so with a one button click of your admin in our portal, you can protect the users from that. And that's simply an integration between an email security service, our remote browser isolation service, and that coupled with the intelligence from our URL reputation feed. Another integration example today is that our Web Pulse teams for this global intelligence network and our STAR teams, which bring a lot of telemetry from the endpoints, are highly integrated. So we now are integrating the network URL as well as the endpoint threats, and we can use this as we analyze threats going on in the future. Shortly, we're going to have further integration between WSS and Proxy SG. We'll be getting telemetry from our CASB product, which has a classification of over 30,000 cloud applications. So we can apply policy whether these are sanctioned or unsanctioned applications. Just through the Proxy SG, you could determine whether you have shadow IT going on. We continue to invest in our hybrid solutions for both our Proxy SG or SWG and our web security service in the cloud, as well as our email, so that we can help the customers on this journey from their on-prem solutions they have today and on their schedule to bring them to the cloud. And ultimately, the measure of success of this integration is your adoption of these solutions, and that's a key measurement and metric for us. Lastly, around customer-driven innovation, Broadcom invests $4 billion annually in R&D. It's a very engineering-focused company, and they value their engineers, and that drives significant innovation in our company, and that enables faster time to market, quality, and performance. And so we're leveraging that ability to innovate with an engineering team of very skilled, experienced folks that we've retained. And we're leveraging our current solutions around a web security service, which is coupled with our greater integrated cyber defense. And we're reorienting that over time to some of the new emerging frameworks, for example, Gartner's SASE or Secure Access Service Edge, which I'll talk to a little bit later on. And that enables us in various ways are important. We're also investing in, while we talk about cloud a lot, we're also continuing to invest in our on-prem offerings, because those are our flagship products. And that's to improve the hardware scalability of our Proxy SGs and our ISGs, and the performance and throughput of SSLV and those things. And I'll talk about that a bit later. A big focus on our remote browser isolation technology. It is very important as more and more traffic is shifting to web traffic, port 80 and 443. A lot more is going through that pipe, and that treatment can be best served by our web isolation technology, which effectively prevents the user from attack and safe browsing. And you'll hear more about that later. And in addition, all the telemetry that comes from our products, both at endpoint and in the cloud and on premise, that gets fed into our databases in STAR, and that's used for enhanced threat hunting with the analytics and correlation that we do on those. I just want to spend a moment just to talk about some of the challenges that customers are having with the shift in where work is done. Traditionally work has been done in the enterprise and the headquarters with some in branch offices. And typically customers will do backhauling from the branch offices to the headquarters, when the headquarters then send the traffic out to destinations through, let's say, a VPN gateway, et cetera. But now we're seeing more and more users are remote users, and particularly now with COVID-19, they're working from home. And that just puts a lot of stress on the VPN systems that customers come in, and in general, the backhauling, it's expensive. People would typically use MPLS lines, which are expensive. They are shifting to SD-WAN, which helps, but it is an architecture that is starting to fade and show its age. And so there's a lot more emphasis on going direct to net to these cloud applications that the people in roaming users and regional office need to use. So effectively, we now have a distributed workforce and distributed workload. And that needs networking and security solutions that are ubiquitous and delivered close to the endpoint device or end user. And you'll hear that theme of edge come up a little bit more later. So I want to spend a moment and just walk through the web security service, because I talked about it early in the presentation. So let's spend a moment and drill into it a little bit. The web security service is essentially our SWG, or secure web gateway, in the cloud, but coupled with all our advanced security products that support that. But the WSS itself is really our cloud network security backbone. And it is at the edge because we support a distributed workforce. We have 42 co-locations through the site in some countries that actually are not served by the public clouds. And so we make sure that that is an important thing, to its edge concepts. I joined in Symantec in the summer of 2018, and then took on this work in about September. And the WSS development as well as the operations. And I've seen that customers embrace this technology. In fact, they're just very happy to route all of their traffic through our web security service. And so this makes you realize that we are really an ISP to bring that traffic with low latency and in-country experience, and at the same time apply all these security capabilities on that traffic as it flows through for visibility and compliance. So really two things that are being done in web security service. It's an ISP and it has all the requirements of networks, low latency, global points of presence, auto scale, and especially uptime. It has to be available all the time, as well as these security stack requirements around efficacy, policy management, visibility, threat detection, and prevention. This distinction between the network aspects of this security service and the security aspects we'll discuss a little bit later in the presentation. But for now, let's just quickly go through this and just let me show you some of the elements of web security service. And at its core is the secure web gateway, which uses our ProxySG technology, which has been refactored for the cloud, multi-tenant, and all that. And that does all the authentication. It terminates the traffic, encrypted traffic for inspection, because more and more traffic is now becoming encrypted. It applies a fine-grained policy for acceptable use, and all the other things around interception. And it really is a bit of a choreography point in our solution for driving a lot of the other advanced security applications that I'll start going through now. And one of them that's key that I mentioned a moment ago is our web isolation product. And that is really, as I said, is for clear prevention of malware from affecting users' emails and web browsing. Web security service also supports our data loss protection product, which is to prevent loss of proprietary information from your corporation. And that's all part of our information security group, and I highly encourage you to attend the April 8th session that Rob Greer is going to give on that. And as a matter of fact, we also send traffic to the Content Analysis Service Broker, or CASB, and that controls access of your user to other applications out in the cloud that put you at risk of shadow IT if they're using, for example, Box when they shouldn't be. So control and visibility is key through this CASB. And by the way, that is the same. We're getting the data feed from that into our ProxySG, both on-prem and in the cloud. So you can get that same level of control through those traffic channels. Also is our Web Pulse and GIN Global Intelligence Network, which is where we collect and drive and continue to grow our threat intelligence and categorization and risk levels for URLs and also file content. And those will typically call advanced malware sandboxing. So if we get some sort of a file that's been downloaded from email or from a web browser that is not classified as suspicious, and it's gone through the funnel of signatures and malware, and we're still not sure, we kick it off to the advanced malware sandboxing, which in an isolated area, it actually detonates the executable, for example, looks for what it does, whether it changes registry settings, tries to make a call out to malicious URLs. That's very important for protecting and categorizing malware and protecting the user. And then our cloud firewall service is now available in the cloud. And as we complete this rollout through the end of June to all of our data sites in the Google Cloud platform, they will all have the cloud firewall service. And it's a very nice, and it's a service to support the remote workers that typically connect into this network, because it allows those remote workers to have all of their communication and traffic protected, not just web, but also non-web traffic. And so let me talk a little bit about that. What are the options for a customer to connect into a web security service? There's the Symantec Endpoint Protection Client, which provides very sophisticated endpoint protection itself, but it also provides connection in for the traffic that's being sent to the cloud. And that's in both SEP and SEP Mobile. In addition, we have the WSS agent, which came with the Blue Code acquisition. It was built as part of WSS, and that is the one that handles all traffic. So all traffic, all ports flows through the WSS agent. And that's a very easy thing to onboard. If you find that you need more capacity for remote users and protection for those users in various regions, you can quickly get a subscription to WSS. The end user can download WSS agent and just get on board very quickly, protect all of their traffic through our service. In addition, we find that a lot of customers take this transition are going through this transformation of on-prem to the cloud. And some are doing it very quickly, or some are doing it gradually, some sort of a step-by-step approach. And one of the patterns that we typically see is customers that have an on-prem proxy or proxies in their headquarter data centers, for example. They will leave them there, and they will simply configure proxy forwarding between that on-prem one and the SWG proxy in the cloud and route all the headquarters traffic through that. But then as they do acquisitions of branch offices and things, they decide they don't want to buy IT infrastructure for those branch offices or regional offices, and they'll typically go direct to net from there. And either they'll use an SD-WAN, and we have certifications with several partners on that, or they will configure either the SEP client or our WSS agent. And certainly for the roaming users, either of those endpoint solutions are ideal. They are nicely handled by our web security service. And this is a great way for customers to transition at their own pace from on-prem to the cloud, and also to be able to deal with this sort of a surprise from COVID-19, where a lot of them have to deal with this rapid growth in the remote workers. So I just want to touch upon one point before I leave this slide. Apologies for that. Our web security service currently is running on our own co-location sites throughout the world, 42 sites. We are, as I said, migrating those over to Google Cloud Platform. We've just done several in the United States, Mexico, Taipei. And the one of note that I wanted to spend a moment on is in India, which, as most of our countries, we're all going through this real challenge with COVID-19 that's affecting people's health, obviously, but also affecting how work is done. And everyone is working from home as well as us. And so there's a lot of load that was coming into our data centers in Chennai and Mumbai. We were able to quickly on a Friday morning spin up a brand new site with WSS with all the capacity we need, several data pods in Google. And it took us 4 hours to get that provisioned and running. If we had done that in using the colo model, that would have taken 6 weeks, 3 months, because of all the ordering around getting servers and getting carriers lined up. So, I mean, this is a benefit that is very apparent now, and we're very pleased, very happy about this, and the timing couldn't be more perfect. One thing I want to leave before I leave is there is another product that will be discussed more in detail next Wednesday during the information security, and that is our Zero Trust network access program, which is an acquisition that was done about a year ago from a Tel Aviv-based company, Illuminate. And we're just beginning the integration of that application with our overall backbone here, and it's going to start sort of at the portal side. The strength of this application is it provides fine-grained access control to your hosted applications, as well as your applications within your enterprise. So now when your remote worker is home, where we all are, instead of just letting, traditionally VPN gives that user at home full access to the entire corporate network. With this secure access cloud, as our name for it, this provides more fine-grained control than you can just give fine-grained application access to specific things in your network rather than the entire network. And that also applies to that same control of the access to cloud applications they use. Very important, very robust technology, and I encourage you to attend the session next Wednesday to understand more about that. Okay. I talked a moment about web isolation and how that's becoming more and more prominent and important in our offerings. And I just will lead off this way. Symantec is recognized as a leader in web threat intelligence. We know more about the web and what's good and bad than anybody else. The problem is that new sites with malicious intent pop up very rapidly, and sometimes categorization and risk level assessment can't keep up. So this powerful web isolation technology is our answer to that, because it provides a completely secure experience for the user. It prevents the user from being attacked. And instead of relying on the typical detection methods around signature, behavior, and other detection-based solutions. So let's walk through the diagram just to see what this is about using a typical deployment. On the left is the user, and they could be browsing traffic, or they could be in their emails. And on the right are the destinations they typically want to get to. The problem is those destinations are risky. The websites might have malicious content that be downloaded. Documents might be coming with viruses in it, and as well as email with phishing attacks and other things. So the solution of web isolation sits between those two things, the end user and these destinations. And it isolates the user from all those malicious things, and by essentially putting a pane of glass between the end user and these things. And that's why the acquisition from the company in Tel Aviv, where this came from about 3 years ago, is called Fireglass. So just to walk through very quickly, the traffic starts from the user, either browser or web. When it gets to the isolation stack, the isolation stack will spawn a web session on a remote browser, and that's within a secure disposable container. The containers themselves in this stack perform the entire web session execution and rendering, and all that's sent back to the user is just the 100% safe rendering information. And that's all that's sent back. So no web content reaches the endpoints. So infection is impossible. Thus, this is prevention. And the end users, they work as usual, a seamless and transparent browsing experience. Now, the same technology can also use to, if the end user sees a document that they want to see, it can be isolated and rendered within the isolation stack without being downloaded to the end user. And if the case is the end user insists on having it downloaded, then we can run that sandboxing technology to make sure it doesn't have any malware. So this is key. And some of the key aspects to this, I just want to step through. Currently, the technology is agentless, which is a benefit. It's very easy to set up. Although it is integrated with WSS, and if you do through that mode, you can take advantage of the SEP agent or WSS agent to connect to it. It's deployed on premises, in the cloud, or in a hybrid deployment. It integrates with our web security service, email security service, malware sandboxing, global intelligence, and it works on any device, OS and browser. And your admin can set policies, and they can, for example, do selective policy, where when the traffic gets to the web isolation stack, the stack takes a look at it and says, well, this is categorized as low-risk traffic. I can let it go directly to the end user. But some other traffic might be uncategorized, or it's determined to be risky sites based on our GIN feeds, and that stuff gets isolated. Another way to do it is full isolation, where you might decide that some of your users, such as a C-level or maybe an admin, everything they do should be fully isolated. We support both. And of course, as I said earlier, the integration with our email to prevent attacks and malware from users clicking on links is a very, very powerful solution for this. So this is a core capability for security portfolio and continues to be invested in. Just moving on to another capability in our web security service is our cloud firewall service. And that is now available in our major colo sites, and it will be available in all of every time we roll up a Google Cloud Platform site, cloud firewall service is part of it. So it'll be fully across the globe by June. And it's another way for to streamline the IT infrastructure, because now, as I said earlier, you can avoid branch office backhauls and still protect remote workers by this combination of a WSS agent sending all traffic to WSS and having a cloud firewall service provide all the firewall rules around blocking traffic, setting policy, and you can do it at user group levels. Okay, now we're going to switch, actually revisit a topic, and I alluded to it before when I talked about this Secure Access Service Edge framework. And this is introduced by Gartner in July of 2019, and it is a new security platform framework that they recommend, and they say that it addresses two market trends. And one of them is spoke of that there is this significant transformation from the enterprise data center to the cloud, and that the work, whether it's work by users or the users, their applications or services are now mostly outside the enterprise and are now in other places throughout the internet. And looking at this diagram, you'll see a familiar view. On the left, we have traffic from headquarters, branch offices, remote users, and mobile users. On the right, you'll have the user's destinations, which is SaaS applications, homegrown applications, IaaS, and private cloud, and then applications maybe they shouldn't be going to, which is shadow IT. And in the middle, you have this service. This model looks familiar because we talked about it earlier when we talked about web security service. And so we're embracing this technology because it's a significant overlap with our integrated cyber defense, which uses our web security service as the network security backbone. So it reinforces what we've been doing for the last 2 to 3 years in the cloud, but it provides a nice industry standard model for us to continue to build to and fulfill. SASE is the short term for it, prescribes several requirements: that the end user experience is positive with low latency and in-country experience, and therefore you need a global footprint for this solution in the middle, and that's needs to be near the user, and that's the edge. And that's why you see these point of presence red bubbles representing the fact this has to be ubiquitous. And which is what we do today with our with WSS, and we'll continue to do as we move to Google. It needs to have an integrated control and reporting plane, which we have today, and it needs to support a broad folio of security components. SASE prescribes these 10 components in the middle of their diagram. We, as we walked through earlier, supply 9 out of those 10 products. We do this today, all the way from Secure Web Gateway to SSL. We support SD-WAN vendors, and the only thing we don't fully do yet is the continual monitoring, and that's something we'll embrace as we further embrace SASE. So, and the key thing is they talk about a hybrid strategy. This is important that you handhold the customers to this cloud transformation. Very important that you decrypt traffic coming in once at the edge of this cloud, and then you feed it off to all the other security applications to further treatment. And one key thing they bring up, which is very reaffirming to us, is they consider the proxy technology as the orchestration point for this at a sort of a control plane level. And that certainly that is our sweet spot of what we do. And so we're using this SASE idea, and as we embrace, and we're embracing cloud native architecture and things to do our next generation of our cloud offerings with all this in mind. We'll talk a little more about that. SASE also introduces some important new concepts, and one of them is I want to revisit it because I talked about it earlier. They say that you clearly need to separate your network as a service, which I show in blue down below, and your network security as a service, which I show in red. And I take that to heart. It reaffirms what I've observed about running web security in the cloud. And what also is good is that now that we've embraced Google as our provider for our web security services. We're letting Google provide the network as a service. That's their strength. That's what they're good at. They can focus on the carriers and load balancing and the peering and all that stuff, and allows us to focus on the red part, the network security as a service, which is what is our strength, which is all these applications and capabilities inside. And I guess we're using this opportunity to move to a cloud native architecture because that's also prescribed by SASE. And luckily, there's a lot of emerging technologies. There's also widely adopted technologies, of course, around containerization and orchestration, but a lot of things beyond that our sleeves are rolled up when we're deep in those communities and utilizing that. The idea is that we need to continue to be highly scalable and more responsive to changing business requirements. So, in summary, why SASE for us? Because it aligns with our current solution and what we're doing and what we've been doing for the last couple of years, and it provides a good industry accepted path going forward. Just real quickly, I just want to revisit that our SSL decryption, inspection, interception technology is world-class. A rating for our on-prem appliances because of the fact that their speed, and also when they have to decrypt traffic and they recrypt it again, it's recrypted in its original state using our 70 ciphers and not downgraded. It's very, very powerful. We're heavily invested in it and coming out with the next versions of our on-prem appliance for faster speed and throughput. That same technology is also used in our proxy SG, because a proxy SG itself can perform the SSL inspection, and as well as the on-prem and the one in the cloud. The SSL technology for people typically deploy at the it's SSL visibility appliance that people deploy at the edge. Is used by customers to decrypt the traffic, and those customers will send it off to the other applications or enterprise, which could be our security analytics, forensics. They send it to the data loss protection on-prem that they have, their advanced threat protection, or they send it to their firewalls or intrusion prevention systems. So more on this front as we move forward, but this is exciting and actually core to our technology. So let me get to the last slide around web, which is around our SWG solutions that are available in various deployment things. So, I've talked about this transformation of the cloud, WSS, ICD, and we've talked about SASE, which is gaining lots of attention. Organizations are starting to align their future infrastructure plans accordingly for this transformation. But for some of the customers, future plans are just that. And so it's going to take time, and they have immediate needs that have to be addressed. And Symantec addresses those needs through our SWG solutions, which are available on-premise as appliance or VAs. It's available in the cloud or anywhere between. We are the industry leader in the secure web gateway platform. We meet the demanding needs of very large-scale enterprises and financial and government and elsewhere, and we continue to invest in this platform. It is core to our technology and core to what customers need. And so in the coming months, you can expect to see further hardware innovation to support your growing performance and scalability needs. One example is we're rolling out a rack scale version of the on-prem of the appliance this year that you can run on-prem or in a private cloud. And why would we do that? Because we find a lot of customers need more throughput, and they will buy several appliances or run several VAs and put the hardware together for that, and then they'll buy a load balancer and connect that up, and then the management center. And we've taken that away. You don't need to do that. We've pre-integrated all those pieces, and we can just roll this into your data center and turn it on and get connected. So you'll see that in the second half this year. We're quite excited about that technology. And also, recently we've got even higher performing virtual appliances, and that opens up all sorts of single tenant deployment options for you. You can do it on premise with your own hardware. You can use the cloud marketplaces for AWS and Azure to run these SWG virtual appliances. You can run it in your own private cloud instance and be supported through our management center and load balancer and such. Or if you decide you're okay with multi-tenant, you just can switch to our WSS and use that capability. So we're continuing investing here. We're the vendor that's suited to meet your stringent, unique security needs in any of these environments. So let's switch the topic to email, which is the other half of my portfolio. And just to remind you that email is the #1 delivery mechanism for malware and data loss. And that is done typically through social engineering, where effectively the users are tricked into phishing attacks and spear phishing campaigns, or they're tricked or into releasing their credentials, which are then stolen and cause all sorts of breaches. Or there's also some fraud around the pay process, and that's caused $26 billion worth of financial loss in a single year, and it seems to double every year. It's getting quite massive. So social engineering is one major vector. The other one is just the advanced threats, and in particular, most of the malware that people end up on their laptops or workstations is delivered through email. And once that gets there, and if it infects the broader enterprise, then it takes quite a long time for the security specialist to isolate and contain it. And that is a lot of work. And so we'll talk in a moment about our solutions in the email space, as well as the rest of our ICD to address that. The third pillar is just data protection. Is this protecting the data? And there is a lot of exfiltration of your data, proprietary data through email. And our email service is integrated with our data loss protection service. And so that provides significant relief from that sort of threat. So regarding the social engineering and the advanced threats, let me just walk you through this several layers that we have in place in order to treat that sort of a traffic to prevent that sort of a breach. And so it's obvious, but starting at the left, the first thing is to only deliver clean email to these users in the middle. And that's done through our email security service, which does a rudimentary check for spam and known viruses. And also runs our business email scam analyzer. So if there's anything that's malicious, it'll block that attack. Now, the second step is if the email gets to the users and gets through that, then there are programs that we have around training to train the users in workshops so they can understand what looks like malicious email, not click on those links. But of course, we're all human and prone to making mistakes, so it can get through to that. It gets to our third step. And this is where email websites are weaponized after the email is sent. And so our email technology uses click-through technology, actually real-time link following, so we can scan every link when it's clicked, and so that goes a long way to blocking attacks. If it makes it through that gauntlet, then it'll end up in our email threat isolation phase. And at that point, the email threat isolation, which I talked about earlier, will make the determination, is this a safe URL that the user's clicking on, or is it uncategorized or risky? And it'll make a judgment based on that, and will isolate it in the latter case. So this is how we reduce and block inbound threats. But there's a second edge of this coin, and what happens if there is a breach? So we have the forensics and the capabilities and the data points in our email security service for collecting all the data for and doing the analytics for this kind of a breach. And there's 60 email data points around email volume and file hashes, URL information from our web pulse that then can be fed as a data feed to the customer's SOC, and the SOC can then feed into the SIM, whether it's Splunk or IBM or ArcSight. And that same intelligence is fed into our SOC essentially to be treated by our systems and our STAR so that we can collect that data. And we use that to do threat intelligence and assessment. It can continue on to the customer's analytics, and it'll continue on into our Symantec cloud. And so we can better serve the next time this threat comes through, we'll be able to anticipate it and block it. So just in summary on our email, it's a complete solution. It provides advanced threat protection. It integrates with our isolation technology, integrates with our data loss protection, and it provides complete analysis of any threats that do come through. It's available in the cloud with our email security service, and that is currently running in parts of it in our colos and parts of it in a cloud provider. That's all going to be ported over to be running in Google Cloud Platform and be finished by November this year. So we have the cloud aspect of it, and we also have the secure messaging gateway appliance in email. And that appliance has been named the top player by the Radke Group's Secure Email Gateway and in their market quadrant of 2019. So it's quite a successful product, very rich, and it's a continuing investment from us. So I wanted to spend a moment on getting back. So we've gone through the web and the overview of the key products and our investments. I talked about email. I just want to spend a moment and just revisit the stress we're all having around the COVID-19 pandemic, essentially, and the fact that it's mandating work from home from everybody. And it's very fortunate that many of us are able to work from home. And so employees, as a result of that, need fast and secure access to all these resources from their managed devices. And you can see this worker on the left that's doing all sorts of business processes that require security, email, for office tools, cloud storage, shared directories, et cetera, and access to many apps. Our web security service is our solution for that, and we are meeting that need from our customers across the globe as more and more stress is put on the system for these customers, more and more workers, and more demand on the network. So Symantec has us covered on this front. Just real quickly, just to sum up where we are, just to recap where we are, we provide superior threat protection. We have robust policy and compliance management through our proxy technology, fine-grained controls. We're better at detecting and preventing email threats. And if there is a threat, we provide fast threat resolution by some of the products I really talk about today, such as our security analytics and our STAR technologies. So let me close. I guess we're getting kind of short on time. We're maintaining and enhancing our technological leadership through the products we've met before. There's continued investment. We're committed to continuing innovation through sustained R&D. And we keep an eye on our customers and how well they're adopting our solutions, and that feedback and support is very important, and that'll guide our products as we go forward. That is our big focus, is to understand the adoption of our products and to make sure our roadmap is around that. We're continuing to deliver value through our solution integrations, unique and ICD. And we're transitioning to a partner program to forge stronger relationships with strategic partners to ensure successful outcomes. Okay, so I'll return it back to our folks running the show. So let me stop. Just turn it back to, is it Andy?
It's Sunil. Hi,
Sunil,
Kevin. Thanks for that. No worries. So brilliant. Just as we move to Q&A, and we've had loads of questions. So thanks everyone. You can just see here a reminder of those next webinars. And as Kevin mentioned, it's information security next week. So we're really looking forward to that. I think we're running up on time, but we'll definitely make sure we've answered some questions. And before we do that, I know as we were going through, we had a lot of questions around, what are we doing around work from home and around the pandemic. So I think you've talked a lot to that, Kevin, which is great, around what we're doing to scale up some of our services and where things like WSS fit and apply with that. Also questions around isolation and SASE. So I won't go into those details, given you covered those after those questions were asked. I think what will be interesting is a good question around isolation we've had. And so just a few questions coming in around the maturity of the technology, where we are, and particularly I think another interesting question around, can this scale? Where we offer full isolation, are we restricted to number of users? But I think just that probably falls into that whole thing around how mature is isolation, web isolation technology as a whole?
Oh, it's a great question, and the efficacy and the capability is very strong, and we've been doing it for several years. And all the stuff that runs in that tower provides the right experience to the end user and the right levels of protection. I think the biggest focus now is around cost and scale, and there's a lot of things we're doing to make that at a cheaper COGS and that sort of stuff. And so you'll see some advancement in that site. It helps us moving to the Google Cloud platform to help us do that. So we will get that to the right level for us. But in terms of the efficacy and capabilities of it, it's very mature.
Great. Fantastic. I think we've also had a few questions around that the Google Cloud Platform. I think some questions there around the timescales. I think you touched on that, but that might be worth just restating. And particularly, maybe just to restate a few questions which came in after you talked about them, about some of the expected benefits, in terms of scale, impact on bandwidth. I think there were questions related both to email and the other parts of the portfolio.
It does several things. And first of all, we're moving very fast. When you ask the question, when are you moving? We intend to be done by November completely.
Oh, wow.
And like I said, the first taxi off the rank is our colo web services, solutions. That's what WSS and parts of the ESS solutions. That's going first. And then the stuff that run in other private clouds or public clouds will be migrated over to Google, and it's got to be done by November. That is our push. Broadcom is great at driving that kind of initiative, and I'll be honest with you, it came in so handy, the fact that with COVID-19, that all this demand on our networks to be able to scale, we've been able to meet that demand because now we were able to quickly in 4 hours set up sites in these regions, Taipei, in India, and things like that. So on that scale, it's great. I think the other thing that it really does for us, it sets the stage for us to then start building our next generation. We've got to extend this to build our next generation platform in the cloud around the SASE, of course, what the framework, but in terms of our choice about widely adopted technologies, and we're in all the communities around the appropriate open source things to use. We are working very closely around the encryption things, and so it's just a nice environment for us to integrate our solutions, which are have been sort of isolated because of the acquisitions. Now it's all coming together on Google. We can spin up and scale faster, and it's a great technology for us to innovate and build to the next generation.
Fantastic, thank you. I think we'll try and squeeze one last question in, and so I think a lot of the audience recognizing, your portfolio has a lot of the Blue Coat products, the ex-Blue Coat products, and interest there. Clearly, a lot of customers on this webinar around the investment and how they might find out about our future plans, specifically around each product. How can they find about the roadmap for things like proxy, so on?
Fantastic. That's a great question. And I'll just reassure you that we continue to invest in all those. They're very important to us and to our customers. And if you want to know more about it, the best thing to do is reach out to your account manager, and they will make arrangements with our product management team, who will then have a discussion with you and share the roadmaps to whichever products you're interested in, security analytics, management center, proxy, SSLV. We'd love to share that with you. We encourage.
Fantastic. Kevin, thank you. And of course, thanks to Art as well for introducing and setting up the webinar. I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. We've had a great attendance, great questions, great comments, so appreciate that. And before we sign out, just want to do a reminder. Don't forget, in the attachments tab, you'll find a ton of useful information, some links, some of the reports Kevin talked to. A blog article around SASE, for example. I know we had questions about SASE, so you might want to read that as well. Would love you to rate the webinar, give us any comments and feedback. In the attachments tab, you'll also find a link to the future webinar series and how you can sign up for those. So we look forward to you joining us next Wednesday, where we'll find about information security. So just it's for me to thank Art and Kevin once again, and thank you, our audience, for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.